Amen. Welcome here. Thank you for coming. We're in John 2. John 2, beginning at verse 13, right? When you have it, won't you say, I got it? All right. If you don't have a Bible, you can look on the screen. We do consider ourselves a tech-savvy church, but by being a tech-savvy church, we don't want to be a Bible-less church, right? So we want you to make sure that you have a Bible of your own. Because we can come in here one day, these TVs gone, right? But we always have a word to follow. Amen. John 2, beginning at verse 13. Here it goes. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade. His disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house, he says, will consume me. Verse 18, so the Jews said to him, what sign do you show us for doing these things? Jesus answered them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. The Jews then said, it has taken 46 years to build this temple. And will you raise it up in 3 days? But he was speaking about the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. Such is the reading of the word, and the word of the Lord is blessed. Let's say amen. Today, just as a thought, I want to ask you a question. Why do you come to church? Why do you come to church? Now, I think that's a real question, right? Why for real, why do you come to church? Here's the thing, right? If we all had to answer the question why we come to church, we would all give different answers, right? But what I would like for you, what I would like to do today is to forget about what your answer would be. I want you to know not why you come, but why you should come. I want you to erase the whole thought process of, right, I don't have to come to church to be a Christian, right? But I'm going to tell you something. If you got a car, you got to take it to get an oil change. I want you to forget about what your answer would be, and I want to help you know why you should be. Let me tell you this. We are not here for a fashion show. We aren't here to be the best voice on stage. We aren't here to be the most popular person in the room. We come to church, watch this, so that we can worship God with other believers and to be taught his word for our spiritual growth. I don't know if you paying attention, right? But it don't take long to look at the TV screen and see that we serve in a wicked culture. But those genuinely converted, blood-bought believers, we gather on Sunday to grow in gospel grace, then we scatter to apply gospel bomb to a broken culture. The thing is, how can we pour into somebody else if we aren't being poured into? If I got 2 empty glasses and my son wants something to drink and I take 1 empty glass and pour it in another, the thing is he's still drinking air. He's not getting anything. We're here. We're here. We come to church so that we can worship God with other believers and be taught his word for our spiritual growth. We come here to worship Jesus. Listen, believers, we gather to effectively and zealously worship Jesus. That's the main point of the sermon. You're going to hear it about 8 more times. Right? Because if you don't remember nothing else I got to say, I need you to know that we come to church to zealously worship Jesus. With zeal, we come to worship Jesus. What do I mean with zeal? I'm talking about an energetic, enthusiastic desire to give glory to the man who gave his life for you. But the question is, where does this zeal come from? Do you know the only reason you have zeal for the things of God is because Jesus had zeal for the things of God? He had zeal for it, and he is our example. Places like Ephesians 5, where he says, be imitators of me. We are to imitate him. He showed his zeal in our passage. Therefore, that same zeal ought to transfer from him to us. Therefore, we as a church, it's interesting, the church comes to church to worship him. So I want you to know, we come to church to worship Jesus with zeal. Now, knowing and fully embracing what Jesus did for us on the cross, let me tell you, should fuel us to worship him with zeal. Somebody said, what did Jesus do on the cross? I'm glad you asked, because if I didn't even tell you that, I don't need to be standing here. Jesus died on the cross for our sins so that we might be forgiven when we trust in what he did. On the cross, Jesus Christ voluntarily bore our sins. He voluntarily took your sin on his back. Do you know what voluntarily means? Sister Tracy, it means that he didn't ask. Did nobody have to ask him to do it? He did it. Why did he do it? Because he loved his creation. He voluntarily bore our sins. He allowed people, think about this. He allowed people to lie about him and kill him. See, when somebody lie about us and try to kill us, right, this means war. I'm coming to get you and all your people, right? But he allowed people to lie about him, try to kill him. He used the evil done to him to bring good to others. That's why we ought to have zeal to worship him, right? That's why. He sacrificed himself and demonstrated the greatest love of all. On the cross is where we are redeemed, and it is where our sin debt to God is canceled. And those who have responded to what Jesus has done on the cross, that ought to give us zeal to lift not ourselves, but lift him up. That's why we ought to come to church. Well, the thing is, right, what does it mean to worship him with zeal? What does this mean? It means to energetically and enthusiastically reverence Jesus for who he is. See, lots of the time, here's what's real, right? Lots of the times we get caught up in what Jesus has done for us. And you know, when you begin to wrap your mind and think about what Jesus has done for you, you begin to wrap your mind and think that he's a genie. Let me tell you this. Jesus does not specialize in giving people things. Jesus, I'm about to jack somebody up and somebody about to get mad, but I'm about to tell you the truth. Jesus does not specialize in giving people houses and cars. He does not specialize in giving you the freshest gear. That's not his specialty. Listen, don't say my pastor said Jesus can't do it. That ain't what I said. I said he don't specialize in it, right? Well, if he don't specialize in giving me stuff, what does he specialize in? He specializes in saving people. Because if he specialized in giving cars, Metro wouldn't be making so much money. If he specialized in giving people materialistic things, right, I wouldn't be so stuck on name brands. But Jesus specializes in saving people. Therefore, we can't get caught up on the things that he does. We need to get caught up on who he is. We get caught up on who he is. And see, the things he does is all good, but how often do you just focus on who Jesus is? How often do you just focus on his deity, his nature, his personhood, right? Think about it, right? Colossians, man, one of my favorite passages in Colossians is Colossians 1, beginning at verse 13, right? Because Paul, as he's talking to the church at Colossae, talked to them about Jesus, right? Y'all remember the series, right? When we preached through Colossians, Jesus at the center, right? He talked to us about who Jesus was. He said he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. He said that, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. You want a reason to worship God? To know that you ain't lost your mind, and he's been holding things together for you. That's what gives us the zeal to worship him, right? And see, the thing is, here in our text, Here in our text, that's what John was trying to get us to see. That's what he was trying to get us to see, right? He wanted us to see that our focus, while we are in the temple, the place set aside for God's use, while we're in the temple, our focus is to be on worshiping God and not on anything else. Our focus must be on bringing glory to him and nothing else. See, during this Passover of the Jews, Jesus, he went up to Jerusalem, and when he got to Jerusalem, Justin, the first place he went was to God's house. The text says he went to Jerusalem and he went to the temple. He went to the place of worship. Let me stick a pencil right there and tell you that no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you ought to have a heart of worship. Notice, right, he went to Jerusalem. He could have easily did something else. The text didn't say it. It says, right after he left this wedding celebration, remember, the wedding celebration there with the turn-up lasted about a week, right? Right after he left there, he went up to Jerusalem and he went to the place of worship. He went to the place of worship, and when Jesus walked in, he saw how the temple had been corrupted by thieving businessmen using God's house as a place to buy and sell rather than a place to consecrate themselves to God. It's a big problem. Let me ask you a question. If Jesus, now this is hypothetically speaking, right? If Jesus was to walk into the church today, would he see anything different from what he saw in the text? He walked in and he saw them selling stuff. He saw them trying to build a business on the back of a consecrated place. Thing is, what are some of the things, think about it in your own mind, what are some of the things that are corrupt in the church today? Right, that the church today has been corrupted by the selfishness of men. All because, let me tell you why the church today is corrupted. Because we don't know how to define success. We try to measure the growth of the church based on how the world defines success. But let me be honest with you, church. If you try to measure a line with a broken ruler, your measurement is going to be wrong. And what we're trying to do is measure the church with a broken metric called the world, and when we don't see at least 100 people, then we don't see the church as a church. Folks don't take Faith Community Bible Church seriously because we don't have a steeple outside. But let me tell you something. We may not have a steeple outside, but we got Jesus on the inside. And let me tell you, somebody said, can I come buy dinner? No, but I'll give you one. I got to get to this place. Can I buy some? No, here's a ticket. Get there, right? It's not about making us known. It's not about us being the best business in Baton. We want to make Christ known. That's what we're here to do. And when Jesus walked into the temple, they turned the church into a place of business. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. Jesus wanted the temple to be what it was designed to be. It was designed to be a place of worship, a place of repentance, a place where life change was happening. But we focus, like so many people have been hurt by the church. Here's the thing. If you ask somebody, what's a hospital that you never want to go to in St. Louis? Most people are going to say, Christian Northeast. Barnes. Some folks even say DePaul. Why? Because they went to a place to be made whole, to be made well, right? And for some reason it made them sicker. So why would unbelievers look for healing in the church when we break them every time they come in? This is a place set aside for people to be spiritually healed, made whole by the power of the gospel. But every time they walk in, we talking about them because they don't smell like us. We talking about them because they ain't dressed like us. At what point are we going to forget about ourselves, forget about what we want to see out of our own eyes, and allow Jesus to lead in and through us? He walked in the church, they turned it into a place of business, and he didn't like it. The church is supposed to be a place of worship, a place of repentance, a place where people come to see their lives change. Instead, in the text, and even today, it has become a place where blasphemers come in and conduct their activities. I want you to see how good I ain't got no rhythm, laugh if you want to, but we want to come and just show people how good we can dance. We want to come and show people how good we can sing. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, I don't care how well you can dance. I don't care how well you can sing. Because let me tell you this, the same people that shouting the church down, the same people that singing your face off is the same people that's at the altar every single week looking for deliverance. But the problem is, we don't hold them to it because we look at them people as being popular. And the same no-name people who do what the popular people do, we talk about them and call them crazy. The church has become a place where blasphemers, false teachers, and heretics make a name for themselves. But the church is not, it isn't supposed to be a stage. It's a place where we come and gather to worship Jesus. Jesus was zealous for God. He was zealous for God's purpose. He was zealous for God's house. He was zealous. He had a lot of zeal for God's people. So much so when he went in and saw what was going on, text says he turned the tables over, dumped out the coins, and used the cord as a whip to scatter money, changes, and animals. Think about him walking in. Right, you walking into church, and instead of them walking Jesus, they throwing dice, talking about 7-Eleven. And he walk in with a whip, popping, walking in, hitting her. You know, it's almost like grandma when she come in the room, right, and the kids doing something they ain't got no business doing. She coming with a belt, hitting everybody, and everybody just, it's almost like Jesus walks in, they cut the light on in a dark place, and all the roaches scatter. Come on, don't act like y'all never had roaches in y'all house before. You cut a light on and all of a sudden all the roaches start running all over the place. That's what happened in the text. He walked into the temple because Jesus is the light. He came in, right, turned the light on and all the roaches start running. Why? Because they know they shouldn't be there. They know they shouldn't be doing what they was doing. Jesus went into the temple and he got angry. With the holiness of God and his worship at stake, Jesus took fast and furious action. He didn't call his friends or send a private message on Facebook and say they turned the church into a business. What do I do? He didn't say, let me fast and pray about how to respond. He knew how to respond. And those people who belong to Jesus, you ought to know how to respond. How do I know how to respond? By spending time in the scriptures. There's no need for you to backtalk nobody because Matthew 18 tells you what to do if you see a problem. You take it to him. You take it to him. He saw what was happening and he got angry. With the holiness of God and worship at stake, Jesus took action. Now, although his physical action was forceful, notice that even when he was mad, he still did all things in love. Let me ask you a question. When you're experiencing pain and when you're mad at somebody, how do you respond? You can be forceful all day, but are you doing it in love? I didn't understand, right? Until a couple of weeks ago, right? So when I was a kid, right, I was the only kid who came out of my mama's womb saved, right? Only kid. But for some reason, Ariel, I was a great kid. I was a Christian. My daddy still whooped me every chance he got. I still don't know, Brother Robinson, why he did it, but he did it. Probably because somewhere I was a little bad. No, I'm kidding. I was a bad kid. But my dad made a statement that I just didn't understand. He says, it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. And I'm like, well, Dad, if it's going to hurt you more, it's going to hurt me. Why don't you just not whoop me then, right? Why cause pain to yourself? That didn't make sense to me until I had to whoop my own kids. Out of loving it, right? And the thing is, right, because I don't even whoop my kids enough. You know, I don't whoop them enough, right? When you have to whoop somebody or bring discipline to somebody that you love, it's forceful because you want them to feel the pain, but it's loving because you want to bring correction to them. That's what was happening right there. He was forceful, but it was not cruel. He did it in love. Now, here's the thing. Not everything evoked this kind of reaction from our Savior. Let me tell you, right? Not everything your kids do deserve a whooping. Sometimes, like the punishment got to fit the crime, right? So it's not that we shouldn't whoop our kids. It's just that, hey, find out what hill you want to die on. Meaning, find out what's worth it, because in the smaller things, you want them to hear you, right? You don't just want to, did you sneeze on your brand new shirt? Go get the switch. No. We don't want to do that, right? Everything everything didn't evoke, right, that kind of reaction. Jesus was always passionate for the Father's purposes, committing himself to prayer, to teaching the ways of the kingdom, and doing all that God asked him to do with fervency and devotion. The reason why we ready to beat our kids anytime we see anything wrong, because we ain't spending no time with the Father. Right? When was the last time you allowed him to correct you? Right? When was the last time you allowed him to come in your life and overturn some stuff? Knowing good and well you shouldn't be hanging out with her, hanging out with him, listening to their music, watching their movies, but you say, right, I'm trying to be clean. Not watching that movie, you not? Oh, man, now pastor saying I can't watch these movies. No, I ain't saying you can't. I'm saying you shouldn't. When was the last time you allowed him to come and overturn some stuff in your life? We see here just how intense the feelings of love for his Father was. Jesus didn't lose his temper or injure anybody, but he did make his point about how zealous God is for worship. In fact, understand this, that God is the ultimate example for zeal. He's the ultimate example for zeal. For he has said that he is a jealous God seeking worshipers of him alone. He is zealous for his glory. He alone deserves it. If we love our Father as the Son did, will also strive to worship him in holiness and seek to convince others that they should worship him as well. See, we live in a culture where people look at holiness as a cuss word. Talking about, that holiness church down the street because the women don't wear pants or the men have to wear suits every week. No, holiness is not the church down the street. Holiness is a way of living for the blood bought. Holiness simply means that my life is set aside for God's use and I need to do what's necessary for him to be seen in me. We don't want to live holy no more. I watched the Brian Cohen video. I almost said something else. Thank God for his spirit, right? We got to live in holiness, right? Holiness is what he's called us to. Listen, zeal upholds and contends for the truth. It busies ourselves about the work of the kingdom and seeks to take every aspect of life and make it an expression of love and devotion to God through faithful obedience and service. Listen, believer, you must ensure that in the temple, the place set aside for God's use, you must ensure that with zeal you worship Jesus. You can't allow your own desires, you can't allow your own fears to cause you not to give him energetic, enthusiastic, God-glorifying worship. Why? Because he deserves it. We must worship him with zeal. We got to worship him with zeal. Now, angry by what he saw, Jesus begins to clean the temple. Begins to clean the temple. That which was in the temple, it didn't belong there. Jesus got rid of it. It leads me to the one and only point that I have today. I got 1 point. Somebody said, oh, man, it's the first time he had 1 point. That's all right, because next week I got 6. I get rollover points, Brother Willie. Rollover. I got 1 point, and 1 point only that I want to share with you from this sermon today. Understanding that you come to the temple to worship him with zeal, find out what's keeping you from doing it and get rid of it. We must get rid of what's stopping us from giving him the worship that he deserves. While the main point of the sermon is that believers gather to worship Jesus with zeal, if you aim to do that, believer, the point is that this text makes clear, and it's the one thing that I want to make clear to you. If you desire to worship Jesus with zeal in the temple, then get rid of what shouldn't be in your life. If you desire to worship Jesus in the temple with zeal, get rid of what shouldn't be there. Now, right there, somebody subconsciously got excited. Right? You ain't gonna really say nothing out loud because you don't want everybody to think you perfect, right? Although you think you are, you don't want everybody else to know it. So you subconsciously got excited. You're looking around this temple, this room, you see chairs. You see a plain stage. You see people. You see a few TVs. You see a borrowed podium, drums and an organ that don't even belong to us, and a music stand that we don't even use. And you're like, you know what? This place of worship is all right. There's nothing here that needs to change. Saying, God, there's nothing to clean out of this temple because there's nothing in here. We got a hole in the wall. We got a little storage room in the back where we allow those babies to color. Ain't nothing need to change in this temple, so we're all good. I'm glad, so glad, that you can look at this temple and see that. But let me bust your bubble. The temple that you need to cleanse is your heart. It's funny how when we talk about temple, place of worship, we look at the building that we're in. But how often do you begin to spiritually x-ray your own heart? We gather to worship God in this building temple, but if your heart temple isn't right, what you do in the building don't matter anyway. We told you before, and I'm going to tell you again, church, if he does not have your heart, he does not have you. That's the truth. Listen. Believer, you are the temple, not this building. This is just a small space set aside where we can gather together every week for a family reunion to worship our Father. But believer, you are the temple. Let me prove it. 1 Corinthians 3, 16, 17. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? He says, if anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Believer, you're God's temple. And he wants to take rest in your heart. Let me tell you, he can't take rest in your heart temple because your heart temple is crooked. Because the thing is, when you're in people's face, you let them see what you want them to see. You show us what you want us to see. But God is longing for a people who wants to uncover their hearts so the truth can be seen. Temple of God, what are you holding back? What are you holding back? Let me tell you this. No Christian should ever say, it's my body, I can do with it what I want. No believer, listen, no believer owns his own body. Christ paid for it with his own blood on the cross. If you are a genuinely converted, blood-bought believer, then your life belongs to him. I remember when I was a kid, had to be about 8 years old, I had a Weeble Wobble, right? A Weeble Wobble is the bag with the sand. You punch it and it come right back. You punch it, it come right back. Well, my Weeble Wobble was a Yogi Bear, right? Yogi Bear, hey, boo-boo. It was the man, right? Yogi Bear was my boy, right? But the interesting thing about this Weeble Wobble is that for some reason, Andrew, it wouldn't hold air. I thought it was mine, so it wouldn't hold air, so I figured I ain't need it. So I went to the kitchen, got a fork, and what's that, Dan? Start doing that and I stuck all kind of holes into the Yogi Byrd Weeble Wobble, right? My sister comes in the room. Why did you do that to my Yogi Byrd? I said, girl, that's mine. She said, no, it's not. Just because I let you play with it don't make it yours. But I flattened it, right? Yeah, that's funny because that's what we do with our lives. We destroy it because we think it's ours. And then after we broke, busted, and disgusted, we run back to Jesus after we messed it up. And he said, you messed it up, but it wasn't yours to begin with. For too long, you've been corrupting yourself, doing things you have no business doing, saying things you have no business saying, but believers are making excuses as to why they don't take care of themselves. You are turning the temple of God into a den of thieves, and God is not pleased. You need to find out what's going on in your heart that's keeping you from giving zealous worship to God, and you need to get rid of it. We must cleanse our hearts. When he was talking about cleansing the temple, he was really talking about your heart. We got to get rid of what shouldn't be there. He says in John 2:16 and 17, and he told those who sold the pigeons, he said, take these things away and do not make my Father's house into a house of trade. His disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house will consume me. In verse 16 in the text, Jesus made a strong demand that they stop their current practices. Why? Because it was wrong. Even today, Jesus is demanding those who belong to him. Those practices in your life that don't belong to him, real talk, you need to stop it. You need to stop it. A place where the Lord was supposed to dwell was turned into a place of business. Our hearts have turned into temples to make money. It's all about that money, right? I got to go get that guap, dollar bill, y'all. No, that's not what he created you for. He created you to give him worship, but you saw a way to make money off of it, and you taking advantage of the gift he gave you. Let me tell you. Let me ask you a question. Really, check your own heart. What's keeping you from it? Is it distractions? When Jesus was spending time with Mary and Martha in Luke 10, he saw two aspects of Christian life. One was service and the other was worship. Both are good, but one is better. Jesus let them know that Mary had chosen a better path to worship. Martha was unable to worship like that because she was distracted by serving. We ain't worshiping God because we're too busy doing other stuff. Let me tell you, even the good things we do for God can be a distraction for worship. It's distractions keeping you from worshiping him right in the temple. Maybe it's not distractions. Maybe, believer, you can't worship him right because you're harboring unforgiveness in your heart. The thing is, we can't worship God and be angry or bitter towards other Christians. John put it best in 1 John 4:20. He says, if anyone says, I love God and hates his own brother, he's a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love a God who he has not seen. Basically, if you have a problem with other Christians, then make that right before you come and try to pretend like you love God. You can't worship God harboring unforgiveness. Maybe it's not unforgiveness, but maybe you're having a difficulty worshiping God because you feel a condemnation for the sin you commit. One of the biggest hindrances to worship is feeling like you aren't worthy to come to God because of your bad behavior. So you don't worship. You stay at home. The closer you are to your sin, the more ashamed and unworthy you feel. That's unfortunate because God is the very first person we should come to when we sin. We don't push away from him, right? He has forgiven us all our sins, and by faith, we need to accept his approval and worship him no matter what we have just done. Let me lift the weight off your shoulders, right? Romans 8 says this, there's therefore no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. For the law of the Spirit of life has set you free in Christ Jesus from the law of sin and death. For God has done what the law weakened by the flesh could not do. So if you know that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, why do you fail to worship him? Because of your sin. When you sin, you need to run from him. You need to run to him, because I'm going to tell you, I don't care how far you run, he see your sin anyway. So you might as well confess it. Maybe it's not condemnation. Maybe it's not condemnation that causes you to worship. Maybe it's biblical ignorance. You just don't know about the God who you're supposed to worship. Let me tell you, biblical ignorance keeps people from worshiping God in spirit and in truth. Truth is, we can't worship we can't worship who we don't know. We can't worship who we don't know, and you can't know God unless you become a student of his word. Let me ask you a question. Who are you responsible for, and who's responsible for you? Maybe you know the word, and you don't worship God out of fear. Not fear of God. I ain't talking about that fear. I'm talking about you scared of what people going to say. What will my friends say if they see me singing? What will my spouse think if he hear me doing this, that, or the other? What do people think, right? Am I weird if I raise my hands? Won't I look dumb or hypocritical because of what I did yesterday? Those questions are all rooted ultimately in pride and the fear of man. Don't be so concerned about what others think about you. The real question that you need to ask yourself is, what does God think about me? And if you ain't worshiping him with zeal in the temple, in your heart, then let me tell you something. He ain't pleased. Maybe it ain't because you fear people. Maybe it's because of your own feelings. Y'all know we live in a culture where you all in your feelings. You feeling yourself, right? All in your feelings, right? Our emotions play a big part in our worship. But honestly, sometimes you don't worship because you don't feel like it. The turn up was real last night. I'm only coming to church so Pastor can see my face, but I'm falling asleep every chance I get. Pastor's sermon just wasn't on it today. The worship team just didn't quite do it for me. But let me tell you this. Worship on Sundays is a response to what happened in your life Monday through Saturday. Worship on Sunday is a response to what happened in your life Monday through Saturday, which means that you don't need the worship team to be on point. Matter of fact, you don't even need pastor to be on point, because the person who you worshiping is always on point. And that should fuel your worship. He says, thing is maybe it's none of these, but at the end of the day, you need to find out what's keeping you from giving him wholehearted, zealous worship, and get rid of it. Because as believers, we gather to worship with zeal. Jesus was zealous for God, his purposes in his house, and so should we be. He was so zealous that he turned over tables, dumped out coins, and used a car as a whip to scatter money, changes, and animals. But Jesus told them, he said, get rid of what's causing them to misuse what has been set apart for God's use. They confirmed, or they confronted him about it. Finishing up the text, they confronted him about it and asked him for a sign. They wanted to know, what right did he have to come and mess up what was going on, what they was doing. It was like they were demanding Jesus to justify himself. That they wanted a sign of authority. So Jesus told them, oh, you need a sign. Well, destroy this temple and I'll raise it again in 3 days. So they said, man, it took 46 years to build this temple. And Jesus said, but I'm going to rebuild it in 3 days. They wanted a sign so bad that the sign was already in front of them, but they was too distracted with everything else that they didn't even realize it. It's a lot like us. You're just looking for a sign. God, if you do this, I promise I'll know it's you. God, if you just do this one thing for me, I guarantee you I'll never do that again. You're looking for a sign. But the thing is, he had already given you a sign. What was the sign? Was that you didn't die while you was in the middle of it. What was the sign? The mere fact that even though you did it, he's standing there with open arms, ready to receive you in his. The thing is, church, is that all of us have messed up some shape, form, or fashion. But ask yourself a question. Why do you come to church? Is it to make yourself known? Is it so that everybody can see your new makeup? Let's pretend like it's Easter Sunday. Is it so they can see your new outfit? Why do you come? Let me tell you why you should. It's because we gather to worship Jesus with zeal and to grow in our faith. The church, honestly, is a lot like an ATM. If you don't deposit anything, you can't get nothing out of it. I can't wait to church because I'm going to get what God has for me. You don't come here to get what God has for you. You come here to give him what he already gave you. We got to check our hearts. Because we look at the temple to be a place where we can just come and showboat, but that's not what the temple is for. The temple is to come worship Jesus with zeal. Maybe you here and you're convicted that you just don't, you come and give God half-hearted worship. Let me be honest with you. The half-truth is a whole lie. And if you're giving him half your heart, thinking that you belong to him, that's a whole lie. If you're in his house and you're not taking advantage, believer, of the opportunity that he's placed before you to give him worship, then you need to check your heart. Check your spiritual pulse. Maybe you here and you like, I want to worship, I just don't know how. Think about what he's done for you. Think about who he is to you. And I promise you, if you think about it long enough, you can't help but get choked up because he did for you what no other man could do. He gave his life on the cross for you. He healed what was broken in you, and you, for a long time, thought it was over, but God, with it by his transforming power, put it together and then called you into a deeper relationship with him.